You were not born to kneel at the altar of approval. Yet here you are, scroll after scroll, like after like, heart after heart, a digital beggar, hands outstretched not for food but for validation, a man in exile from himself, hoping the feminine will crown him worthy if only he's soft enough, polite enough, pleasing enough. You were told this was love, but what you practice is submission. What you call respect is nothing but spiritual supplication. And here's the truth that burns. She can smell it. She doesn't need words. The feminine feels. She senses when a man is off his throne, when his smile is a mask, when his compliment is bait. She can feel the rot of unclaimed masculinity leaking through your pores like cheap cologne, because you're not giving love. You're trading performance for approval, and that stench is repulsion. Stop worshipping women, not because they are unworthy, but because you are unworthy of abandoning yourself, unworthy of shrinking to be liked, unworthy of turning your life into an audition. You were not born to orbit. You were born to radiate, but you forgot. Because modernity broke your spine and handed you a script, one written by the soft tyranny of passive culture, one that teaches men to be agreeable, obedient, and charming, not sovereign, not rooted, not whole. You were taught to fear rejection more than insignificance. And that is why you are hollow. That is why you overthink every message, every glance, every silence. You've become a man of reaction, not action. A man of mirrors, not flame. You wait, you hope, you chase. And then you wonder why you're ignored. It's because you don't know who you are. And a man who doesn't know who he is cannot be lovingly used. This is not new. Carl Jung warned us that the man who represses his shadow becomes enslaved by it. The man who worships the anima, his inner feminine, without integration, becomes consumed by her. And you, my brother, are consumed, not by her body, but by your projection of her power. You've built an inner temple to an outer god, and every day you bow. And she smells it because you're not standing in truth. You're hiding in performance. You're not choosing her, you're fearing her. And fear smells like prey. You think if you adore her hard enough, she'll stay. But adoration without essence is not love. It's compensation, it's bribery, it's please pick me so I don't have to become myself. And she knows. She always knows. Here's what they never told you. The more you pedestalize her, the more invisible you become. Why? Because what you worship, you make above you. And what is above you can never desire you. Desire is horizontal. Respect is earned by strength, not offered through subservience. Love is not built through obedience, it's built through presence, through groundedness, through a man who knows what he serves. And it's not her. A man who doesn't worship women doesn't hate them. He reveres the feminine, but he doesn't contort to chase it, because he doesn't need to. He is already complete. His purpose is not to orbit beauty, but to build reality, to anchor vision, to shape chaos into form, to transmute pain into wisdom. And that kind of man is felt. She doesn't need him to beg. She doesn't need him to chase. She is drawn because she recognizes something ancient, something she can't manipulate, something that doesn't move when tested. And that is safety. That is power. You want to be wanted? Stop wanting to be wanted. That's the paradox. You become desirable when your desire no longer enslaves you. When you are not bending your boundaries for attention. When you don't shapeshift for approval. When you can walk away not because you don't care, but because your mission is greater than your ego. That's when she sees you. Because now you see yourself, but you've got work to do. Because right now you're a stranger in your own house. You've outsourced your identity to dopamine and desperation. You've made her your meaning because you have none. Your spine is flaccid, your will is sedated, your eyes scan for affirmation instead of scanning the horizon for conquest. And I don't mean conquest of others. I mean the conquest of yourself. The inner war, the silent battle between your sovereign fire and the soft boy who just wants to be liked. The one who says, if I do everything right, maybe she won't leave. But that voice is the ghost of a boy who never healed. And if you let him run your life, you will die a man who never lived. Because listen carefully. Love is not found in the absence of rejection. It's born in the presence of courage. You don't find connection by silencing your truth. You find it by standing in it even when it costs you, especially when it costs you. And so the work begins not with strategy, not with pickup lines, not with learning how to text better, but with a funeral, the death of the performer, the death of the man who seeks identity through her reaction, the death of the man who confuses feminine validation with masculine worth. You kill him not with violence, but with vision. You bury him with silence, discipline, clarity, and fire. You rise, not to dominate women, but to reclaim your place as a man among gods, one who doesn't beg for love, but embodies it, one who doesn't chase beauty, but lives beautifully, one who doesn't perform to be chosen, because he already chose himself. That's when she feels it. That's when they all feel it. Because now you are no longer seeking the world's permission. You are becoming the man the world cannot ignore. But don't mistake this for some shallow call to become alpha. That word has been butchered by the same weak minds who fear going inward. This isn't about posturing. It's not about louder voices or colder hearts. It's not about fake confidence stitched together with borrowed quotes and gym selfies. It's about substance. It's about depth. It's about becoming the kind of man who doesn't flinch when the mirror shows him his wounds. The kind of man who doesn't run from his loneliness, but walks straight into it, because he knows it's not a punishment, it's a portal, a sacred fire where the boy dies and the man is born. Carl Jung called it individuation, the slow, brutal unraveling of false identities until all that remains is the eternal self. And most will never touch it. They will stay orbiting their desires, addicted to the feminine, not because they love women, but because they fear facing the void without them. And that fear makes them predictable, controllable, neutered. You cannot lead when you are still a hostage to her reaction. And here's a part no one tells you. She wants you to lead, not to control her, but to not be controlled by her. She wants to feel the pulse of something ancient in your presence. Not comfort, but command. Not certainty about her, but certainty about you. Because deep down, the feminine is chaos creative, wild, emotional, divine chaos. And she is looking, always looking, for something grounded enough to hold her without needing to tame her. And you've been chasing her emotions, apologizing for your truth, and shrinking yourself into something that won't trigger abandonment. But you were never meant to be a pet. You were meant to be a pillar. You were not designed to ask, what do you want me to be? You were born to declare, this is who I am. And if that terrifies her, let her go. If it inspires her, let her stay. But never let her confusion become your compass. Your compass is your inner authority. The part of you untouched by her moods, untouched by social media, untouched by desperation. And that authority is quiet. It doesn't scream. It doesn't plead. It doesn't need her to see your worth because it already knows it. But here's the catch. It only emerges once you stop outsourcing your masculinity to women. You've been trained to believe that your power is measured by your desirability. That if she likes you, you're a man. That if she's attracted to you, you've made it. But let me ask you, what happens to that identity when she withdraws? When she ghosts you? When she doesn't see you? Does your confidence shatter? Then it was never confidence, it was performance. And every performance requires an audience. You cannot become sovereign if your soul depends on applause. So stop trying to be seen. Start trying to see. See where you've abandoned yourself for affection. See how you've edited your truth just to keep the peace. See how you've silenced your desires because you were afraid of being too much. And once you see it, burn it. Burn the version of you that is only whole when she's watching. Burn the man who only feels alive when she says yes. You don't need her yes. You need your own. Say yes to the path of solitude. Say yes to the nights where no one texts back. Say yes to the seasons of obscurity. Say yes to the silence because that is where your soul will speak. And it will say, you were never meant to worship her. You were meant to build a kingdom so alive, so rooted, so unapologetically yours, that she recognizes her place in it. Not because you demanded it, but because you became undeniable. You want to lead? Then stop negotiating with your own instincts. Stop making yourself small in the name of peace. Because peace bought through self-betrayal is not peace. It's a slow suicide. And every time you suppress your edge to avoid her discomfort, you sharpen her contempt. She doesn't trust the man who yields to everything she says. She doesn't crave the one who constantly adapts to her moods. She wants the one who remains unmoved, not emotionally distant, but spiritually anchored. She wants the man who can walk through fire, not flinch at a text message delay. But you won't become that man by chance. You become him through confrontation. Not with her, with yourself, with the aching emptiness you keep trying to fill with women's attention, with the shame you buried behind compliments and emojis, with the wound of the boy inside you who thought love meant obedience, who thought affection was earned through sacrifice. That boy must be seen. And then he must be released, because you are no longer that child begging for belonging. You are the man forging his own identity from fire and solitude. You are the one who walks alone, not because no one wants you, but because your path is too narrow for the approval of the crowd. And when you become that, she will feel it. Not because you told her, but because you don't need to. She'll feel the silence in you that doesn't reach. She'll feel the confidence that isn't loud. She'll feel the gravity that pulls not through charm, but through presence. Because now, you're not trying to get her attention. You're too focused building a legacy. You see, the man who stops worshiping women doesn't become cruel. He becomes clear. He's no longer trying to prove his value with flowers he didn't grow, words he doesn't mean, or attention he can't afford. Because real value, soul-level value, is not performed. It's embodied. And the tragedy is this. You were never taught how to embody. You were taught how to chase, taught how to compliment, taught how to become the nice guy. But no one taught you how to sit with your hunger without groveling. No one taught you how to feel attraction without losing your center. No one taught you that masculine desire isn't dirty, it's divine when rooted. Instead, they told you to be sweet, be agreeable, be safe. And in that safety, you became invisible. The more you bent, the more you broke. And they rewarded your compliance with silence. Ghosted texts, dry replies, lukewarm maybes. Why? Because the feminine can't follow what doesn't lead. Not with force, but with frequency, with groundedness, with the gravity of a man who knows who he is, not because she clapped, but because he dug into the marrow of his soul and remembered. And brother, this remembrance, it's violent. It doesn't come through meditation apps and soft affirmations. It comes through inner war. You will have to face the parts of you that kneel before beauty, not out of reverence, but out of fear. You will have to sit with the boy inside you who thinks, if I lose her, I'll lose everything. And then you'll have to whisper, good. Because only when you lose everything that isn't you, can you finally become what is. This is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of the shadow. The parts of you repressed, unloved, unclaimed, the neediness, the obsession, the helplessness, the compulsion to be chosen. These are not your enemies. They are your keys. But you must stop outsourcing your healing to her. She is not your mother. She is not your savior. She is not your purpose. She is a mirror. And mirrors don't lie. She reflects what you carry. If you carry desperation, she'll reflect chaos. If you carry conviction, she'll reflect surrender. And if you carry emptiness, she will run. You don't fix this by reading more. You fix this by feeling more. Feeling the hunger beneath the simping. Feeling the ache beneath the overgiving. Feeling the rage of a life spent begging for scraps when you were born to feast on destiny. Because when you feel it, really feel it, not judge it, not bury it, but hold it, you begin to separate your truth from your trauma. You begin to recognize the obsession with being liked. That wasn't you. That was abandonment speaking. The desire to be needed, that wasn't love. That was emotional debt. The way you shrink when she's distant, that's not sensitivity. That's your unhealed boy screaming for validation from a mother who was never home. But you're not a boy anymore, you're a man. And if you're going to live as one, you must walk away from every identity that was built to survive in a world that no longer exists. The world you were trained for, where men got rewarded for compliance, is gone. This world demands power. Not loud, aggressive power, but the quiet kind. The kind that builds silently at 5 a.m. while others scroll. The kind that says no without guilt. The kind that doesn't flinch when she's distant. The kind that builds temples, not followings. You don't attract love by being more agreeable. You attract love by being more aligned. And alignment doesn't ask for applause. It walks alone, not out of arrogance, but out of purpose. And when you walk like that, she feels it in her bones. Not just her mind, not just her ego, but her womb. Because that's where the truth of the feminine lives. Not in words, but in vibration. And when she feels a man who has nothing to prove, nothing to beg for, nothing to perform, she drops her games. She drops her shields. She remembers because you remembered first. And this is how we shift the culture, not by blaming women, but by rebuilding men. By creating a generation of men who no longer outsource their sense of worth. Men who don't need to be chosen to feel chosen. Men who have killed the need for validation so thoroughly that their presence becomes validation itself. That's the fire you must walk through. The fire of being misunderstood. The fire of being alone. The fire of being seen as too intense, too focused, too much. But hear me. Better to be too much and unshakably you than to be just enough and chronically unseen. You're not here to be digestible. You're here to be divine, to be dangerous to mediocrity, to be the kind of man whose soul can't be seduced by flattery or destroyed by rejection, because you know who you are. You've buried the boy. You've burned the performance. And now when she looks at you, she doesn't see a man waiting to be liked. She sees a man who remembers who he is. And that's irresistible. So let this be your awakening, not a rebellion against women, but a resurrection of yourself. You do not need to hate what you once idolized. You simply need to remember what you abandoned to do it. your time, your mission, your vision, your fire. You traded all of it for the chance to be seen by someone who was never meant to crown your worth. And you know it. Deep down, beneath the screens, the simping, the smiling masks, the thirst, the hopes, wrapped in feminine attention, you know you have wandered too far from your own kingdom. But today, the veil lifts. Today, the silence between her texts becomes sacred space, no, a panic room. Today, the ache in your chest becomes the altar where the boy dies and the builder is born. Today, you stop chasing approval and start building authority. You become the man whose presence says everything his words no longer need to. You become the storm she can't predict, the mountain she can't move, the current she can feel but never tame. You become the man who is too focused on vision to beg for attention, because you finally understand. It was never about her. It was about the parts of you you were afraid to meet without her. It was about the shadows you refused to hold alone. It was about the mission you abandoned the moment she smiled. And now, no more. No more collapsing when she pulls away. No more dimming your truth for a maybe. No more losing your crown to hold her hand. You don't need permission to rise. You need decision. You don't need to be chosen. You need to choose yourself. So walk away from the altar. Wipe the dust from your spine. Pick up the weapon you laid down the day you decided it was easier to be liked than to be real, and burn the script they gave you. The one that told you to wait, to chase, to please, to flatter, to fold. You were never meant to be a worshiper. You were meant to be a force. And the moment you remember that, she'll feel it. The world will feel it. Because now, finally, you walk like a man no longer begging to be seen, but born to be remembered.